We are 1 week away from New York City taking a very dangerous road for their future. They're about to elect an inexperienced communist, a Marxist, a full-blown Marxist who is in favor of globalizing the Intifada. And over the weekend, Zohran Mamdani was campaigning like he's already won this thing. He's already starting his victory lap. But he may have pushed things a little too far, telling a lie about how racist and xenophobic and hateful the American people are, the people of New York City are. And it turns out it was a lie. We've caught him in that lie. We'll show you in just a second. But first, here was the scene at a rally over the weekend with AOC and Bernie Sanders, because, you know, what communist rally is complete without them? And take a look at AOC acting perfectly normal and subdued and controlled. And
this city was built by the Irish escaping famine, Italians fleeing fascism, Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country, in a vision to build the freest, toughest, and greatest city on earth.
Have you noticed she's doing this whole greatest Manhattan thing? What is that? I counted 5 different accents in there. I'm not sure how many you got. I should have warned you ahead of time. We can play it again, and you can put a little counter on the accents that you hear. Did she say that Native Americans built the city of New York? Technically, they sold it to the Dutch for some beads. But okay. Okay, babe. You know, what I've found interesting about all of this is that the one group of people that didn't build New York were actually the founders of New York and the founding fathers. You know, when our Constitution was first passed and George Washington was sworn in as president, he wasn't sworn in Washington, D.C. There wasn't a Washington, D.C. He was sworn in New York City. You know who else built New York? Wall Street built New York with Alexander Hamilton. They love the hip-hop Alexander Hamilton up on 46th Street in the Richard Rodgers Theater, but they're not a big fan of the actual Alexander Hamilton, who, you know, created the New York Stock Exchange. They had a lot to do with building that city too, ma'am. But, you know, when you're a Marxist, you hate free market enterprise investments, banks, and capitalism. Let's watch this again because it truly is unhinged. Take a notice, by the way, there's no teleprompter, so she can't hide the fact that this is all scripted. She's reading on the podium there, right? Compare that to any other politician who, when they get on the stump, they kind of know who they are and what they stand for. And they can sort of talk off the cuff, right? Number one. But number two, pay close attention to the left hand arm gestures here. There's something so manic about it. It really is disconcerting.
This city was built by the Irish escaping famine, Italians fleeing fascism, Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country.
It was 4 accents, I believe, and I don't know. For the people who call Republicans and Trump fascist, that's like Mussolini style speech giving. And there's something terrifying when a politician is screaming at you like that in a fervor as their cadence gets louder and faster and the crowd starts screaming. Bad things happen in world history in a climate like that. And, well, like I said, we're a week away from Zohran Mamdani being mayor of New York. There was another notable moment in this rally that AOC, let's just say, revealed a bit too much. I think the lady doth protest too much here.
But we must remember, in a time such as this, we are not the crazy ones, New York City. We are not the outlandish ones, New York City. They want us to think we are crazy. We are sane.
I think it goes without saying that if you have to stand up at a podium in a rally with a couple of thousand people there and reaffirm yourself and everyone listening that you're not the crazy ones, maybe, just maybe, you should take stock of that moment. No, really, we're normal. We're the normal ones. Okay, that's why you're proposing an economic model that has never, ever been sanely or rationally considered in this country and has never worked in any foreign country. But yes, of course, you're the sane, rational ones. Sure. Politics is starting to get down and dirty up in New York right now, specifically with regard to Zohran Mamdani's identity as a radical jihadist. And no, I use those terms cautiously, but in an informed way. When you stand up and preach globalizing the intifada, and the intifada, as everyone knows, is a violent terrorist tactic against peaceful Israelis meant to target innocent civilians and murder them, I think it's fair to say that you're pretty cozy with radical jihadists. And then there's this. Leave it to the New York Post. Photobomb indeed. That smiling man next to Zohran Mamdani is an imam in Brooklyn. He was actually linked to the terrorist who planned the bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993. He's called for a jihad in New York with 10,000 Muslim men marching the streets of Manhattan. Vote for me. And people are. It's actually worse than that. Not only has Mamdani gotten into some political hot water, sort of, at least with normal, sane, rational New Yorkers who are over 30 years old, because he posed with that terrorist-loving imam, but Andrew Cuomo raised the concern about Zohran Mamdani's inexperience at the debate. Take a listen very carefully at what Andrew Cuomo is saying about the fact that Mamdani's never had a real job, and what's going to happen if New York City faces a crisis. You and I will hear this clip and recognize that this is a very fair criticism of a person who's never really done anything in an executive level at any capacity, like being mayor of New York City. But if you're Zohran Mamdani and you're the media, you're going to hear a racist, Islamophobic dog whistle. See if you can pick it up.
What the Assemblyman said is he has no experience. And this is not a job for someone who has no management experience to run 300,000 people, no financial experience to run $115 billion budget. He literally has never had a job. On his resume, it says he interned for his mother. This is not a job for a first-timer. Any day, you could have a hurricane, you have, God forbid, a 9/11, a health pandemic. If you don't know what you're doing, people could die.
All right, so I want you to watch this one more time. We'll pick it up halfway through. Watch Mamdani's face here as Cuomo. One of the things about Mamdani that is very powerful, by the way, and I hope every politician recognizes this if they're running for office, he smiles all the time. It's actually a good thing for a politician to do that. Believe it or not, if you're smiling, I like you. I know they taught you that in kindergarten, but most politicians don't get it. There's a time to be forceful and stern and show your anger and your passion. Mamdani is smiling as Cuomo is ripping him a new one. But watch how that smile fades when Cuomo raises 9/11.
He literally has never had a job. On his resume, it says he interned for his mother. This is not a job for a first-timer. Any day, you could have a hurricane, you have, God forbid, a 9/11, a health pandemic. If you don't know what
you see what happened there. By the way, pretty ballsy of Cuomo to raise the specter of a health pandemic because, dude, you might want to not bring that up and remind everybody. Honestly, choosing between these two. But you saw Mamdani's face. You know, the point Cuomo is making is this is not a job for on-the-job training, okay? And yes, in New York, you could have a hurricane, you could have a snowstorm. You could have a superstorm. You could have a power outage, a blackout. You could have a government employee strike. You could have a police strike, a teachers union strike, any kind of thing. And yes, of course, 9/11. What he meant was a terrorist attack. You hear that as a crisis for the city of New York, and you want somebody with experience and a firm hand on the wheel. Mamdani and the media, they hear it as an attack on Zohran Mamdani's Muslim faith. I'm not kidding. They are taking that and they are using it as a weapon and a shield to protect Mamdani from any criticism. So now, Zohran Mamdani over the weekend went on the offensive, and he told literally a tear-jerking story about his aunt. Take a listen.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City.
He's crying.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Okay, well, very emotional, very powerful, literally tear-jerking, fighting back the tears as he told the story about his aunt who didn't feel safe riding the subway in her hijab. And of course, he's surrounded by visually identifiable Muslims, including women, wearing hijabs, right? Big deal. Wow. How dare you raise the specter of 9/11? That's racist. That's Islamophobic. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Hey, didn't you just pose in a picture with a guy who was like an unindicted co-conspirator of the 93 bombing of the World Trade Center? I said, how dare you? How dare you? Do you hear me? How dare you? That's what this is. That's what this is. He doesn't have to answer those questions because his aunt was scared to ride the subway wearing a hijab. Now, let me just say a couple of things about this. I would never, ever challenge this man's personal family history about such things. I'm sure he's telling the truth. Let's just put a pin on that for a second. Let's for a second stipulate that he's telling the truth about his aunt afraid to wear a hijab in the New York City subway. I want you to go back and Google, do a Wayback Machine search, check news reports, New York Post, Daily News, local New York stations, national, please, all eyes of the world were on New York City in the days, weeks, and months after 9/11. Find me one instance, and I mean this literally. I'm not being hyperbolic. Find me one instance of bigotry in New York City, on a bus, on a subway, in a cab, on the sidewalk, in a taxi, at a hot dog stand, at a pizza store, in Central Park, anywhere, on the Staten Island Ferry. Find me one example of bigotry or hatred toward a Muslim American. It doesn't exist. And this guy is fighting back the tears, telling you a story. And understand something. The premise of his story, to shield himself for political purposes 8 days before Election Day, the purpose of the story, the main crux of the story is America sucks. America's full of racists. America's full of bigots. Vote for me. That's what he's doing. And again, I would never question the validity of this story. I'm sure that his aunt was terrified to wear a hijab in the New York City subway, but only out of ignorance, because nothing happened to a woman wearing a hijab in the New York City subway. She may have been terrified, but she wasn't terrified because of anything non-Muslims did. If she was terrified because from whatever country she's originating from. If a certain identity group like radical Islamic jihadists did what those radical Islamic jihadists did on September 11th, it probably would be dangerous for someone identifying themselves with that group, even tangentially, to be seen in public because of the backwards third world country she came from. But not here in America, you jerk. Americans bent over backwards to express our rage and our anger and our outrage at those who committed the acts and those who financed and supported those acts. And yes, the radical ideology that empowered and motivated those acts, but not some woman wearing a hijab in New York City. He wants to be the mayor of a city that he hates. That's disgusting. Oh, and remember when I asked you to put a pin in the whole idea that I would never question the validity or the sincerity of this story about his aunt? Yeah, take that pin out now. Because it turns out not only is he telling this story to sort of display his own intolerance and hatred for the city and the country that he has come to as a guest to become a citizen of from Uganda. Not only is he telling this story to illustrate how horrible this place is and how bigoted this place is, but yeah, it sure looks like this story is a lie because that's his aunt. She's got a beautiful head of hair, doesn't she? It's fabulous. Why would she suddenly start wearing a hijab when she moved to New York if this is how she wore her hair in Tanzania? Tanzania, by the way, the country wherein she was residing when the 9/11 attacks happened. So we're supposed to believe that, I'm sorry, how did the story go again, Zohran?
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Boy, that's some good crying acting there. He is in New York. He could have gone to Stella Adler or something. As you can see, that's his aunt, Zohran Mamdani, and from 1999 through 2003, she was working in Tanzania. Maybe she visited New York, or maybe she was afraid to wear her hijab in the subway 2 years after 9/11. Would love to get some details on that. I'm guessing no one in New York will ask. I'm also guessing that Zohran Mamdani will come up with some ridiculous, oh, I didn't mean an actual blood relative aunt. It was a family friend that we called aunt. Okay, it's a cultural thing, you bigot. Don't come at me. Absolutely terrifying that this person's about to be the mayor of New York City. And by the way, there's a media meme going on out there that if Zohran Mamdani wins, they want to blame, get ready for it, Republicans. Yeah. Have you seen this? Well, if Republicans had a better candidate other than Curtis Sliwa, then we'd have an alternative. Or if Curtis Sliwa just dropped out of the race, then Andrew Cuomo would win. Nobody wants to blame Democrats for nominating this monster as their candidate. Oh, and by the way, having the runner-up candidate be another monster, Andrew Cuomo, who everybody hates. No. It's Republicans' fault. But set aside the fact that these are their two candidates, what about all of the mainstream Democrats who, forget about refusing to condemn Zohran Mamdani, are actually endorsing him? Hakeem Jeffries finally crawled out from under a rock and gave him a tepid endorsement on Friday. Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, she's all in on Zohran Mamdani. They're the ones who created this monster, thank you very much. And it is a monster because look what happened at this rally with Kathy Hochul. Listen, you'll see it's a huge turnout. It's a great rally, and that's why Kathy Hochul endorsed him, because she wants to harness that political power. But boy, oh boy, that political power, that rattlesnake you're grabbing and harnessing all the energy of, that tiger that you've caught by the tail, yeah, it's vicious and deadly. Listen to the crowd at this rally. I know that you're not used to hearing terrifying, screaming, chanting crowds, but if you didn't make it out, they were all chanting, "Tax the rich. Tax the rich. Tax the rich." Pitchforks and blazing torches not included. The rich that they want to tax, those are the ones who were funding Kathy Hochul's campaigns. And by the way, all the No Kings rallies and all of the everything that the Democrats do. This could be this incredible gaslight subterfuge to get Mamdani in the door, and then he's not going to do anything. Or he's actually going to destroy the city, and all the Democrats who followed him will be left picking up the pieces. One of the two will happen. I suggest it might be the latter, because I think he actually believes this crap. Here he is at the AOC Bernie rally.
Here is what we stand for, my friends. We are going to freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants and use every resource at our disposal to build housing for everyone who needs it. We are going to eliminate the fare on every single bus line and make what are currently the slowest buses in the nation move around this city with ease. And we are going to create universal childcare at no cost to parents, so New Yorkers can raise their family in the city they love. Together, New York, we're going to freeze the... Together, New York, we're going to make buses fast and... Together, New York, we're going to deliver universal... We will make our city one where every person who calls it home can live a dignified life.
At least he's not hiding who he is and what he wants to do. The problem is actually explaining how he's going to do all those things, and the tax rates and the costs and the control and the end result of all those policies. They don't fit into a nice, call and repeat sort of chant at this time, but I'm sure they're working on it. I'm sure they are. You look at, they keep calling themselves Democratic Socialists. You look at the wealthiest, most overarching, heavily taxed Democrat socialist states in the world. And I mean like Canada, Norway, Sweden, the ones they always point to as the ideal. And they don't have all that garbage. They don't provide all that garbage in those countries. And those are countries who don't have open borders, who don't have the federal safety net that gets exploited by rampant illegal immigration. And by the way, those countries that are heavily taxed and doing all those great things that all the socialists tell you will work if we only give it a try here, their economies are like a fifth of what we've got. They're not interested in a growing economy. We kind of are. Also, they grow crops in other countries to feed their own people. There's a whole lot going on over there in those Democrat socialist utopias. And I promise you, what this guy is selling ain't gonna fly, not even close, and everybody knows it. But he attracts a great crowd, and so the Democrats are all on board, and RIP NYC.